Hey, folks, it's Phil, the miniature model maker, coming to you today with Gundam Artifact Phase 2, Model 8, the Dom Tropen. This is a fun one. I've been looking forward to this for a bit. Like a lot of these other ones, I have already done some earlier assembly before I decided I was going to start streaming those, so I did have to take it apart. And I've done a little bit of sanding and stuff in these first three stages. We still have all these things to put together and see, so we will get started. Also, happy Valentine's Day to anybody who celebrates it, and hope you and your loved one are enjoying the day or going to enjoy your day in a good place, and everything is fine. So let's see, let's pull all these here. We're going to get our desk organized just a little bit more. I had the parts I hadn't touched blocked off so my kitties didn't get to them. So here we go. The first three steps, as you can see over here, have been cleaned up. So we'll do our assembly on that. Likely gonna yeah, I'll do gluing and stuff today too. So this is going to be another one of the taking time to clean the other parts up and glue. But um, do I want to glue? Yes, I do. I may just not glue the front torso in. I can pull that apart. From everything, it's a fairly simple build. It's the components that are a little bit on the more complicated side. But let's get into it. So there's that. I can't do that. All right. So 33 and 34 are our leg pieces, our leg shrouds. 35 is a really cool thruster. And I think some people have made photo etch parts for this one, if I recall correctly. There's some neat detail up parts, as our Japanese friends would say. There we are. Okay, and you are not. Are you the right piece? No. Well, we're going to find out. I believe you are the right piece, and you need to be touched up. Do a little bit of work here. So I may be a little bit quieter than normal. I had a bit of a rough night, feeling slightly under the weather. But man, I want to get these done. I'm hoping, ideally, it will be awesome if the Phase 5 stuff would come in before I'm done with all of these, but I'm starting to think that at this rate, probably won't. My fear with this is that Bandai will be shipping internationally to their international distributors on the 17th when they release in Japan, and have not already sent everything out under embargo to their international folks so they can actually be made available and sent out on the 17th as well. And that at some point we will all be getting these at a delayed release elsewhere in the world. And Dom here is number 8 out of 21 current kits. So that leaves me 13 left. And that's, at this rate of one a day, that's less than, well, that is 2 weeks from today if we count number 8. Okay. So our first 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 steps. We need to put part 40 into 41, which is our really cool. I wish you guys could see this. Really neat thruster feet. It's got some very nice, what look to be jet engine vents in there. And this part goes in. Let's make sure everything's in front of my hand and not behind it. Still have not found that piece that I lost yesterday. We're going to have to wait for the weekend cleaning. I'll do that tomorrow. All right, so we've got this peg. This is a bit of a big peg. So we're going to sand that down, file it down. I have already sanded these. Done our first sanding. And not a final sand. So what are you working on today, friendly viewer? What's your big project at the moment? Okay, so when assembling this, if you can see, there's the angle there, and there's an equal but opposite angle there. So it's easy just to stick the back end in, like so, and push down. Done. And I don't think that even needs any sort of gluing. We're not going to worry about that because there are no significant sight lines. I mean, there are some bits, some spaces here, but that's on a foot, and that actually looks kind of cool. So that's done. Number 2, we take parts 37 and 36. Actually 36 and 37. And those have been brought down a bit. This, though, I believe, is going to get some glue. So we will get them put together closely. Yoink out the extra thin cement. And again, I'm putting the biggest dollops of it in places that are either flat panels where it can be easily sanded down, or up underneath where I don't need to worry about visual issues. I try not to put the large globs of it when I'm in places where it'll be hard to get to, if at all possible. All right, so capillary has mostly done its job. We'll put a little bit more there. Let it set for a second, and then push. And there's some satisfying splooging. I can't think of a better word. But it's not so much that it's going to be a right pain to remove. So very nice. Okay. There is down up here on the foot part, which is going to go there. There is some pretty nasty misalignment and gap up in there, which will need to be rectified. However, we're not going to worry about that today. That's a problem for tomorrow's fill. All right, then step 3 is to put this in here. And we are definitely going to be putting some glue in there. Learned my lesson the other day, and am not using too much. I don't want it to break the part. Okay. Or melt the plastic or anything like that. All right, so the angle where the clip where you would actually put the foot goes backwards. We've got that set. Thankfully, there excuse me, there are big spaces here and here to get tools in, because that's going to be a cleaning hazard. Yeah, that's going to definitely be some detail work to be done there. It'll be okay. All right, that's taken care of. So step 4 is putting these two pieces together. And before we go any further, we will drop these down. And I'm not going to glue this part in to make sure that there's access for the foot parts when I need them. Plus, this is going to require a fair amount of smoothing out and work as well. Okay. Here we are. So again, on the bottom, put down the most of it so it sticks together. Not going to put maybe just a little bit in here, because the whatever they're called, spin blades, will do nicely in that little section. All So there is a bit of unevenness between these two sides. You can see it most right here on the bottom end of this thruster. But other than that, there's some very fine sculpted detail here, like something going between this section and this section here. Don't sand that off, don't remove it. But it's very thin and there's likely to be damage if you're not careful. And then this front section here, there's some sunken in a nice square that a spin blade or a chisel will clean up fairly well. So yeah, that's a pretty easy part. If you want, these panels along in here are nice and thick and you could do some freehand scribing on them. Get a pin vise, some little divots here you can deepen with a tiny little screwdriver. But other than that, it's going to be okay. Oh, it's going to be a heavy water drinking day, I think. So forgive the slurping sounds. Okay. And are you the right one? I don't think you're the correct piece. Or do you go in this direction? Let's consult the box. Okay. So this looks like it's some kind of weapon. Just pops right in there. Okay. There's that. And then 35, 36, 33, 34, and 35. Now, one of these legs. Okay. All right. So here's a pain point on part 33. The one with the sockets had, in this case, it has a peg in it, but it broke. Don't mess with that peg because that's what the foot's going to connect to. All the pegs that you want to trim down are on part 34. So we're just gonna put this together like so. There. And 35. Where do you go up inside the leg? Up in here? Okay. So there's a peg hole and two pegs on this one, a peg here and two slots there. And this attaches up into the leg. So I would almost say this from an attachment point, from actually assembling it, I would put this part on. Again, that's part 35. I would put that on this ankle piece here before even attaching it to the rest of the foot assembly. And that also is not going to be glued yet. But there we go. So that's what it ends up looking like once it's finally assembled. And we'll show you the other leg, show you on the other leg a bit better, because it's still, the inner peg on the leg didn't break. Here for there, here for here. And the arms on this are another tongue and groove, which is why I'm not doing the gluing the front of the torso on. So other than being Butterfingers today, this is probably going to be a bit easier to put in. And look at that. Yeah, a whole lot easier. Okay. I may just skip the glue. I think I'm coming down with a cold, and I don't want to be permanently screwing things up. All right, so again, in, down, down. Assemble, assemble. Excuse me. And the pegs on this are at a very heavy angle, 45 degrees relative to the side of that piece, which makes it very easy. And the front of the foot is here. To just plop them in straight. Nice and easy peasy. All right, so now our leg assembly. That's the front. So boo. Which, this is the rear. Okay. So let's look at our leg here. I didn't say to cut the peg. This is just that is the front. I was right. Maybe I'm wrong. Nope. There we go. Okay. So it slots in at a pretty extreme angle. This part is very close to the foot. And before we go any farther, Let's get this put back in place. There we go. And this goes here. Squeeze, squeeze. Boom, boom. So without glue, and we see that there's some gaps here. So I will need to do the pegs a bit more. You'll need to sand the pegs a bit more. The front's looking pretty good though. Like I said in the description, these nice big flat panels are easy to clean. And the details just right, just enough that it looks properly technical without being overly detailed. However, this knee joint here, up in here, along that's going to be a little bit of a pain to even and clean. And up here into the insides of that as well. The rest of this, though, and it looks okay except for right here. So, yeah, nicely done there. Next part, the left arm. This is an easy one. Yay! Hand in hand. Plop, plop. Into the shoulder. Okay. So there, on this side, there's a little tab on the peg, and there's a slot at the back of this. So if I'm holding it there, the slot's on this side, just to make sure we have it oriented properly. But if you plan on gluing, there's the possibility of just taking that little tab off and being able to twist the arm into the orientation you want. And the shoulder piece is one piece for once, finally. There were some alignment issues, mold line issues here along the front, but it's such a nice, easy piece just to sand down. Really no huge issues, or no, not even really small issues. It's just a nice, easy piece to clean up. And then tab, slot, and a raised portion there. And we're going to take a little bit off the edge. Just to be safe. And tab A into slot B. There we are. Not going to go all the way down again because I'm going to have to take this apart one last time. But that's the arm. Okay, now we get into, there we are. This is a little bit more complicated, and I have not touched these parts up, so we're going to get a bit of sanding action going on today as I do. But as I was saying, this piece, really easy to clean. It's flat, so you can just run the sanding pad over the entire thing. Easy peasy. Simple. Simple is as simple does. And then the same thing with this sprue mark here. That may not be a sprue mark. It looks, I think it's a sprue mark. It may be a molded piece though too, molded detail. Yeah, that looks like a little bit of molded detail. But that's probably going to get sanded down. Again, a tiny, tiny little piece. Doesn't really need worry over that. And evening this out. Working on these, I can see how some of those professional studio builders will spend 100 hours on a kit. It's just, that's getting those things just right. Glass glass smooth, and everything so their customers are happy is, I can totally see how that happens. Okay, so this segment here, up against the rim, there's a molded detail part, but there's also a mold line through it. So that's maybe something to scrape away or gently sand down and re-scribe out later. But yeah, the angles on these lines between the panels, and they're molded, they're sculpted panel lines, are perfect for describing. All right, that was done. And then part 18. Let's get this touched up a little bit. Nothing too fancy on this. It's just a socket joint, a ball joint for the shoulder. And the file on the peg. We are defiling the peg. So I've had people in Discords comment on my long fingernails. And then I show them the size of the parts that I'm working on. And like, oh, I see why. Like, yeah. Homegrown clamps. All right, that's good enough. So it says 1, put the bazooka together, and 2, put the arm together. So that's what we'll do. One of these days, this bazooka is going to shoot all over you. Let's go ahead. If I recall correctly, the pegs on this aren't so bad that there are gaps, but it is a weapon and is one of the focal points on the kit. So we're going to just bring them down just a little bit more. And there are some very small mold lines along the inside that may create space gaps. So we're just going to do a quick run over. Nothing fancy. Just take out the worst of them, just in case. Because these big round weapons like this or parts are a bit challenging to clean. All right. Oh, gracious. Okay, part of note. There's an indent here on top that'll match this guy right there. So you don't want to be putting a lot of glue near that. That's going to be challenging to clean, at the least, to say the least. Okay. You know, since we don't need to glue this. But that came together pretty nicely. There is, of course, a gap there. So fix it how you will, or as you want, whatever works best for you. All right, now we have our brace handle thing. Take off that sprue mark. And another one up here. This is a really delicate piece with a lot of mold lines on it, unfortunately. So take your time. You may even want to scrape. Gently, gently, gently scrape. Very lightly sand. Okay, That's enough. All right, and this round bit doesn't have any tabs or anything for it. But there is a slot on the left side, the inside side of this tube. And which we'll see the purpose of in just a minute. And now we're very carefully and gently trying to put that together. It doesn't fit snugly, but that's not exactly a problem in the long run. Not exactly a problem in the long run. There's some nice detail. There's a little thing here that looks like you could probably put, if you wanted to paint it, some sort of neat monitor or viewing port so you can see through the shield. I don't know if that's a thing in the show. But it's a neat option for detail painting. Okay. We're going to try this again. Actually, you know what? Stop. Hold the press. Before we go too crazy, get the rest of the weapon put together, buddy. That way we can just slot it all together. So messing around with this kit gets me thinking about Gundam Assemble and what the rules for it are going to be like and how various models and things are going to be on the table. Because this guy looks like something I would definitely want in my army. Just a big, huge walking tank that looks to have some fairly decent mobility. With those engines on its feet. Okay, here we go. Knowing the Zaku, or the Xeon faction mobile suits aren't as durable as the Federation's Gundam suits, kind of makes me sad. But maybe in a tabletop game that there will be some more parity between the two. Okay, here's the front of the bazooka. This part is nice and flush, but this front part's got a gap. That's going to have to be filled. But a blade or something, chisel, should be able to clean that out fairly easily. And the most important point is there is a tab on this. And that's what goes into the slot here. And that's what locks these parts in. So even though this, like I said just a bit ago, this isn't really sturdy in the long term, in the short term, excuse me, it doesn't really matter so much because it's going to get locked in. And we're going to bring these down just a hair. And thin that up just a bit. And a little bit of a scrape. Here's a part that will definitely benefit from being cleaned up on its own as a separate part because of all these weird angles and things, then have difficulty of access once you get the shield there on there. It's going to be troublesome. Okay. Get that. Oh, gracious. Come on, there we go. All right, so this is the easiest way to assemble them. Get your collar for this on this side. And put that in, and then you can just turn this part however you need to get it where it's got to be. And there you go. So yeah, those little pegs are huge compared to they're long relative to the space that you've got. So I would even recommend maybe just cutting them off. And if you can see here, the way everything assembles, one, that would relieve some pressure that's causing this to deform. And two, would make it easier to just glue it. And then you'd slim this down quite a lot. So this whole assembly does require some fair amount of work if you want it to be smooth. But there we are. That's the basic assembly for that, how that goes. And this is easy as it is. The hand piece, let's look in the arm. All right, so it looks like the hand had a T-junction, and I clipped part of that off because I don't want to be painting this on the arm and everything. I wanted that separate. So when you're assembling that, make sure that you've got it in the in the correct order and set up how you want it. I just did that so I can slot the hand in and out. And see, there we go. That pops out very easily. But bloop. Nice and easy. It attaches how it's supposed to. And just like the other one, we have a slot and groove for the shoulder. And it looks like I may have, God help me if I just did a little work on this before I put these other parts together and forgot about it. There we are. So there is that arm assembled, quote unquote assembled. And the rest of these, oh. So we've got two of them with pegs, two of them without. That's a pretty easy fit. That's parts 27, 28, 31, and 32. And then part 29 goes between the two of them. There we go. And then this slot and another peg and slot. Just have to make sure we have this oriented in the correct way. So this goes in like that. And there's really not a whole lot to say about these parts. Gluing them, you're going to, just like the rest, you're going to have trouble with these thrusters. But for the most part, they're actually pretty flush. Just make sure you do all your sprue cleaning, at least on part 29 first. Maybe not on these, because that way you can get a nice even sand. But yeah, the molded detail on this is just perfect. All you got to do is enhance them a little bit, and you're set. Possibly, I can't tell if that's. This is even molded here. That looks like it's 0.1 mils across that. And there is that join line. But overall, that might be about the perfect piece. It's even got these little bits there for larger and smaller details. And a beam saber, blah. I'm not going to mess with the beam saber. So now the head, we're in this step here. The notes I have here says trim tab and glue socket. So that would likely mean trim the tongue here, the tab around this. Or did it mean... Okay, so there is a little tab in the head too. Did I already glue and trim? No, I did not. Okay. Plop. But I guess the tab on this is long enough that it causes issues with the socket part of it. And I can see how that would potentially be a thing. So we're going to bring that down even more. And it's a snug fit. Like really snug fit. There. Okay. Awesome. That's perfect. I don't want to go any further with that. In fact, I want to measure it just in case to make sure I didn't push it in too much. Maybe I did. All right. Well, that may be a slightly unfortunate turn of events. Or not. Or not. Can always be fixed. There we go. Is that pushed up more? Let's see. Let's try the other side of the torso here. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there, folks. Just need to make sure it doesn't go flying. Oh, and that's nice and snug. Nice and snug. There we go. Beautiful. So there we go. That the tab for that can go way up into the head. So make sure you don't push it too far in. It would be better to, probably even better to not put the head in this first and put the tab, the neck piece into the torso and then put the head on once everything else is assembled. Speaking of once everything else is assembled, let's see what we can do here. And comparing the left and right arms, the left arm, which is the right as we're facing it, has a tab. So the arm without a gun has a tab to make sure if it goes, and the weapon with the gun does not, the arm with a gun does not have a tab. So they go in the correct spot. And here we go. Careful, 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 careful. Careful, careful. All right, that's close enough. Keeps everything together. Put the arms up. Legs go on. And then these little side hustles here have a peg, and those go facing forward. I really don't want to push this whole thing together. Oh, I'm sorry, folks. I don't want to go through and put all these little detail pieces back on because I am going to have to take it apart one more time. And I did damage some of these just slightly. I will show you this trick though. Here we go. So here's the rear skirt. It tabs in there. And the parts, the thrusters that go on the inside, have a wedge and then an angled peg. Look here. Look at the instructions to see how the things go. So the wedge on the side goes towards the edge of the inside here. So this is part 10. And it goes in pretty well. It went in pretty nicely the first time. The reason those wedges are there are to keep it, there's a little slot that helps keep them oriented and makes a really nice, or will make a really nice glue. Yep, that is the correct one. Oh, golly. I shouldn't have done this today. Not when I'm not feeling well. Because these were slightly frustrating. Now that I'm thinking about it. And part 12 has a different size socket and a different bracket on it. And of course, that one played nice. Here we are. Where are you? There you are. Slide that in. Why don't you just go in there, little one? Come on. Okay. I apologize, folks. I don't have the patience to be dealing with these parts today. Thank you for watching this somewhat half-baked assembly of the Dom Tropen. And we'll get the parts together so you can at least kind of see what it's will look like. And I do look forward to the day when I'm doing the actual full detail build, gluing and everything, so you can see how it all really goes together, because this is a fantastic kit. There's a lot of order of operations things, like the legs need to go in when you're doing the full assembly. Put the legs in first. The arms can be moved up to make that easier, and then 9 and 6 and 9, they go on these pegs here. And remember to have the pegs on them facing out, because that helps to brace the other parts that go along with it. And I'll pull this, 7 and 8, this here. So these legs first, then the sides, and then the fronts, and then do the back. And of course, this piece goes in last. Why, you say? To make sure that part 21, its little peg goes into its hole. If you have this piece here, access for that's going to be a lot harder. And all you really need to do is just slot that in at the very end. And that's that. That's the Dom Tropen, which is a pretty freaking cool model. I just love how chunky it is. And these legs are going to be fun, kind of like the Rick Diaz, I think. Where'd you go, Ricky boy? Here you are. Ha! Funny, there's the left foot on both of them. But yeah, these were fun to paint. They were fun to detail, fun to scribe. Probably going to be fun to sand, even if I'm so inclined. But they're just cool. These little guys are great. And did I glue that? Yes, I did. So thank you again for putting up with me in my state today. I have been Phil, the miniature model maker, coming to you from the haze of impending illness, doing Gundam Artifact Phase 2, Model 8, the Dom Tropen. And remember, this is a hobby. If it doesn't if it doesn't bring you joy, don't do it. And be good to yourselves. Bye bye.